Carlene Carter was just 17 when she began her musical career, and she continues to have staying power more than 40 years later. As the daughter of June Carter and stepdaughter of Johnny Cash, she caught the music bug when she was really young.
And the murder so bright as the emerald dew.
Country music was in her blood, but rock and roll was in her soul. She's coming to Idaho Falls next month for a concert performance. She spoke with me about her musical heritage, her relationship with her father, and the responsibility she feels in carrying on the Carter family legacy. She also told me about her special connection to Eastern Idaho.
It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, too. I'm excited about my Idaho trip.
Have you been to Idaho Falls?
You know, I'm not positive. Probably not. I think I would remember that. But I've spent time in Sun Valley, but that's been like 7 years ago. And then I passed through there and played like Boise and, is it Great Falls? No, that's not Great Falls.
Idaho Falls?
Idaho Falls. That's where you're at, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've been through there.
Do you?
But it's been a while. A long while.
Yeah. Do you? When you're in Idaho, do you do much sightseeing?
Well, I've only had one extended kind of vacation there, which was like about 10 days, and I flew into Boise. It was 0 degrees in February, and then I drove over to Sun Valley, and I stayed there for 10 days and had a really lovely time. I'm usually a warm weather kind of person, but I decided to do something different that year and go somewhere snowy and beautiful, and that's what I did. And I'm excited to be coming back that way again because I am going to take a little break there. I'm playing some shows in Oregon and Washington, and right before I come to Idaho, and so I've got 4 days off, which I'm going to go up to Sun Valley and hang out there for 4 days, and then I'll proceed on down to my next shows, and then end up there, I think. And then I come home.
I see. Okay. Well,
it's not happening quick enough for me. I'm anxious to get there.
Well, hey, that's great. I know you mentioned the weather, but what's your favorite part about Idaho? Is it the weather, or is there a specific location, or?
Well, no, there's no specific location because I couldn't name all the locations that I've probably seen, but I do just think it's just the people are super nice, and the scenery is gorgeous, and I love that there's like some really wide open spaces there, and then you've got those gorgeous mountains too, so I like that. And it's not so populated. I mean, I'm in Nashville, which is has grown so fast in the last several years, and I just moved back here 2 years ago, and it's still got some nice country to it. You know, it's not overgrown. The city has not overgrown out into all of everything, which is how I feel about Idaho. It's like it's nice, and it's America, man.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Well,
yeah.
That's good to hear. I know that a lot of our readers here will be happy to hear that you have a connection to Idaho. So
I do. I even have the key to the city, and I have a key to the city in Sun Valley. Don't ask me how I got that. I have no idea.
Oh,
It was
wow.
just what they contacted me and said, we want to give you the key to the city. I guess because I came there. I really don't know how it happened, but it was a nice little ceremony, and I've got it hanging on my wall next to my key to the city jail of Nashville.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So I guess before we get into your career, your most recent project, Sad Clowns and Hillbillies, with John Mellencamp.
That was in 2017. That record came out, and it was a collaboration between John and I, and mainly I was just more of a guest. But I was on almost every track, and I wrote a couple of songs that are on the record, and John and I did a duet and one of my songs on it. So it was a fun record to make in the studio with him and the guys, and fortunately I had known them for a couple of years and worked with John and the band for that long, and so it was just a natural progression to go in the studio and make some music together on top of everything else. We had a really good chemistry together as far as singing together and hanging out and all that. So I felt like the band were like my family, and it was fun. Yeah. So that was great. And one of the and then the next project I did, though, was I did a Carter family album with my brother and all my cousins, which came out this past fall, called The Carter Family Across Generations. And so it's the most recent thing that I've done as far as a record goes. And right now I'm in the process of collecting all my original material together to do another Carlene record.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm hoping to write a little bit up in Idaho. That's kind of part of why I'm taking those few days off, is I'm going to bring my guitar and my brain and my heart and see what I can come up with up there.
How did your relationship with John Mellencamp begin? How did you guys meet and begin this working relationship?
We had met over the years, a few times, but it was very, brief and not very personal. Just like, hi, how are you doing? We were aware of each other, that kind of thing. But when I did, in 2014, I did a record called Carter Girl, and John heard that and called me and asked me to open a couple of fair dates for him, because he was looking for someone to open for him, and he didn't know any of the people that they were suggesting. And he just said, well, what about Carlene? She's got this record out. And I had done something with him right before that he called and asked me to sing a song on the Meg Ryan's directorial of Ithaca, the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I went and recorded that with him, and then he called me to do these fair dates. And then I go back to work with him a little bit on finishing that track up, which was called Sugar Hill Mountain, which is on the Sad Clowns and Hillbillies record too. And that was on the soundtrack to Ithaca. But anyway, he said, are you excited about next year, which was going to be 2015? And I said, yeah, I'm excited. And he said, no, are you excited about working with me? And I said, am I working with you? And he's like, yeah, 80 dates. And I was like, oh, okay. Great, yeah. So I was pretty stoked about that. And I thought, he would probably want me to at least have a couple of musicians with me, and because it was for his crowd, which is predominantly a rock crowd, and I just didn't see myself going out there and picking my guitar by myself, but that's what he wanted. And he's just like, I just like you by yourself. You just go out there and do your thing. And I did, and it went down well. It was a nice, welcome to the audience for the evening. It was like I was kind of the hostess of the night, and I got to say, okay, everybody sit back in your chairs. We're going to have a big time, and then get up and dance when John comes out. But I'm going to tell y'all the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But anyway, it worked really good, and it also challenged me to become a better musician and a better solo performer, because it had been a long time since I had done that, just me by myself. In front of a large audience.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was cool. And so I did, I've done about, I would say, close to 200 shows with John. And we actually were discussing possibly working together next year and working on a record this year. And it just didn't work out on both sides for us to be able to do that. But I think we will always somehow be in each other's circle, because
Sure.
we just are simpatico musically, and he understands what I do, and I totally get what he does, of course.
Sure, yeah. It's interesting. There was a time in, country music when you would never, ever cross formats and work with an artist in another genre, but it's interesting how music has kind of evolved, and artists will work with each other in different genres all the time now. Have you noticed?
Yes, I think that's great. And, yeah, because that's how I started out, is that's what bugged me about the music business, was the segregation of genres. And I wanted to make records that were per song. It's like if I wanted to write a song that was rockin', I could do that. If I wanted to write a beautiful country song, I could do that. And that's how I wanted it to be. Unfortunately, when I started in the 70s, it was a hard sell. And so I was promoted as a country artist and as a rock artist, which kind of split me in a weird, bizarre way, because my records were a little more rock than was country happening then. So later on, the funny thing is in the 90s, when I came back and went back to Warner Brothers, I said, I think I owe you guys a record that might get on the radio. And I said, oh, and by the way, I'm country now. The thing about it is, between you and I and the readers out there, I didn't really change anything. I just told them I was country. Because I wanted to be a rocking country artist, and now it has progressed a lot, and I think with the kind of music that John makes, which is really song oriented, and the kind of music that I make, it's not about the genre, it's about the song. And you can do any song you want in any way you want, such as, I can do Carter family songs in a completely Carlene kind of way, or I can do them very traditionally. So that's, and I've been concentrating a lot on the last several years on the Carter family's, my legacy, because that was something that was just really important to me and instilled in me as a child to carry on the music and keep it alive. So I've kind of dedicated myself to that, and now I feel like it's time to plug my electric guitar back in before my knees completely go out.
Yeah.
And I can go out and just have some fun, which I always have fun anyway. And I think I hope the crowds will enjoy. I hope the show that they'll enjoy my show, because it is a complete cross section of all kinds of stuff. And I'm a very country girl, and I think the older I've gotten, the more I'm just in my body and more myself. I was in Oregon, and this woman was interviewing me after I did this little showcase thing for the Performing Arts Center's people, and she said, "Do you really talk like that?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Is that really your accent? Is that how you really sound?" I was going, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, are you sure you're just not putting it on?" I was going, "You can't put this shit on, lady."
That's funny. Well, so let me go back to the beginning, because you come from a musical family. I mean, Johnny Cash, June Carter. What is your earliest memory of performing?
I remember being a little kid and standing on the side of the stage and dancing, and just bopping up and down. That was my thing. My little knees would bend and I bop up and down. And I actually have a picture of me the first time I went on stage. I don't remember that, but I have a large blown up picture of my mom and my grandma and my Aunt Helen, and we were playing in a old folks home in Johnson City, Tennessee, and I just made my entrance then. Mom just said I would always just stand there and dance next to them. Then later on, I walked out on stage in Chattanooga, and it's actually on a tape that a friend of mine, Greg Geller from Sony, sent me a while back, a cassette he had of this performance, and I had practiced singing a song in the car on my way down there. And so I go out on the stage, and my mom says, "Well, hello, what do you want?" And because I wasn't supposed to come out yet, but I did, and I said, "I want to talk on that," and pointed at the microphone. And basically the rest of it's history, because I just proceeded to go on. And I really wasn't, I was a little teeny kid, it's like, and boy was I country. Oh my God. I said, "I want to do it in the car."
Yeah.
She said, "Can you sing this for the people?" And I said, and Aunt Helen goes, "Yep, do it like you practiced in the car." And I said, "Can I do it in the car?" And my mom says, "Who is this child?" She's not mine.
Wow.
She's scared to sing. It's like, I wasn't scared to sing. I wanted to do it in the car.
So coming from, having two parents that were singers, it doesn't sound like it was something that was pushed on you. It was totally something that you wanted to do.
I wanted to do it. I loved music, and my first instrument was a ukulele that my mom got me, and I had a little chord book that told me how to do it, and she taught me how to pick a little bit. And then I started taking piano lessons when I was 6 or 7, I think, and I took lessons for like 8 years, and then I went to college and studied piano. But my whole thing was, Mom really instilled in me that I have something to fall back on. If I wanted to go into this business, I needed to learn how to write songs, was number one thing she told me. Another thing was, if it doesn't work out, you need to have an education to fall back on. So I went to college until I got a record contract, which was 3 months before I graduated, and I was going to be a music teacher. That was my plan. Worst possible scenario, and I still guess I probably could do that now if I had to. I'd have to study up a little bit, but I used to be quite good on the piano as far as playing classical stuff, and I've got to say that my chops are way off now. It's like I can't get through one thing.
Yeah.
My sight reading is kind of gone, but so that was my backup.
Wow.
And so I taught piano through college to pay for my piano. I bought a Yamaha Grand, which I still have. Bought it in 1974, and it's sitting in my house right now.
I'm interested also in, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago now, a movie called Walk the Line came out, and that was Johnny Cash's story.
Yeah.
I'm interested, what was your relationship like with Johnny?
Oh, it was fantastic. For a lot of years, Mom wouldn't allow him to come to the house because he was being very Johnny Cash. When I say he called himself Cash when he was messed up. But she wouldn't allow him to come to the house. But we would go on the road with Mom, and so we were around John a lot. And he was so sweet and kind to us. But then when he finally got his life together, so to speak, we started going on vacations with him to go fishing in Florida, which is where we always went down to my grandma and granddaddy's house and went fishing in the Gulf. And he was really good daddy to me and my sister. And so by the time I was 12, he was very much a father figure to me, and even before then. But I always called him Big John because my daddy was also my daddy, and I always thought I can't call both of them daddy. I just can't,
Yeah. What about your relationship with Carl Smith, your biological father?
Oh, my dad and I, we didn't really gel on the music thing that much. In fact, it didn't have anything to do with not gelling. It had more to do with the fact that he didn't talk about it a lot. I had to it was like pulling teeth to get stories out of him or to find out what it was like for him. And he had become a cowboy, and all he was really interested in was raising a family and being with his wife Goldie, who was awesome, and riding horses and learning how to be a cutting horse guy and a quarter horse cutting guy. And so he was on the National Quarter Horse Cutting Association, and all involved in that, and going to rodeos and shows, and that was what he was into as far as I could remember. I know that he was on the road up until 1978, but it never really, I never saw my daddy play but one time, and that was in Las Vegas before he retired, right before I started. And that was amazing to see my daddy on stage. I'd seen videos of him, film of him and stuff, but he would always whistle when he rode his horse, and sometimes he'd sing. And there was something about him that was really a part of who I am too, and that is like there's a feistiness about my daddy.
Yeah.
And my mom would always say when I was being a smart aleck, she'd say, "That's your father. That's the Smith in you." And if I mouth off at somebody or stick my foot in my mouth, basically, she would say, "That's your daddy," because he was a piece of work in the most wonderful way.
Yeah.
He was feisty and opinionated, and he had done it all, and he just saw no point in going any further and being one of those guys that was trying to hold on. He felt like he had done everything and been at the top, and he wanted to go try something new, and he did.
And you've performed with both of them. You've performed with Johnny and you brought your dad out of retirement, I understand.
I did. That was quite a feat, I tell you, getting my daddy to come and sing with me. But the only time I think I've ever been nervous in the studio singing with anybody was with my daddy, because he comes in there and I'd already gone through everything with the band and made sure everybody knew everything just right, because I knew Daddy was not going to do it more than once, maybe twice. And he looked at me, and we're across the room from each other on our microphones with our headphones on. He said, "You better get it right the first time, kid, because I'm only doing it once." And I was like, "Oh my God." Was he just sick of the limelight or something? Did he just grow out of the... He said it had afforded him the life he always dreamed of. He said country music was good to me, and it has afforded me the life I always dreamed of, which I thought was a wonderful way to put his time in. I mean, he started in the late 40s, and by the time it got to be the late 70s, that's a long run. And he'd had a lot of number one records, a lot of hits, and he was the top of his game. And and it started to kind of like change a bit, and he just didn't feel like it was his thing, and he wanted to do something else while he was still young enough to do it.
I see. Becoming a country artist for you, was that a conscious decision? Was that influenced by your dad and your mom, or was that...
It was influenced more by where I ended up where I went when I didn't know what to do musically. Was I always went back to my roots, back to the Carter family songs, the ones that I grew up on. And, people ask me, well, so what were your country influences? Honestly, I didn't listen to country music when I was a kid. Or teenager. I listened to the normal rock stuff that everybody does. I was crazy about Eric Clapton and Van Morrison and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and my big influence was Linda Ronstadt, and of course Emmylou Harris later. But those were big things to me. Chris Christopherson was a big influence on me because I got a front row seat to watch him when he was starting to get some success in our living room. He was playing his songs, and I was like, this is amazing. And that was the case with a lot of artists that came through our home, and I got to see that. But I always went back to the Carter family when I got to a point where I go, I don't know what I'm doing, or I need to get back to what's to me. It's like one of the things that I was really taught and influenced by John and Mom was to be unique. It's okay to just be you, whatever that is. You don't have to be country. You don't have to be rock. You just be you. So for me, I grew up with Carter family music, Johnny Cash music, and Carl Smith music. And that was kind of it. That's all I really heard as far as country went. But you can't really say that Johnny Cash was particularly country. He was Johnny Cash. And that was the difference. And so I got that information early on that it's okay to not necessarily fit. And I didn't fit for a long time, and a lot of people said, wanted to say she was ahead of her time. I don't know that I was ahead of my time. I was just doing my thing,
Yeah. Well,
and I learned a lot, by making a lot of mistakes and writing some not so great songs and writing some good songs, and songwriting has fed me most of my career, and so now it's time for me to buckle down and write the rest of my catalog over the next 10 years, hopefully.
over the years, as you've written songs and recorded songs, do you have a favorite song of yours? Some artists say that's like asking me who's my favorite child. Maybe that's it for you.
Well, there's ones that I favor because they're good songs. There's ones that I favor because they're very personal. I think one of my favorite songs I've ever written is probably the one I wrote about my sister and I when we were little girls growing up, because that was probably one of the first songs where I described what it was like to be two little Carter girls in the back seat on the floorboard of the car with Grandma driving and Mom and Helen and Nita jammed in there or in another car behind us. It was always, to go back to that and really realize how much I loved it and how much it was a part of who I was. When I wrote that, it was a coming into my own kind of thing of owning it all and being completely honest and not really caring if anyone thought it was catchy or it was going to be on the radio or any of that. I was just talking about my little sister and I.
Every artist has their signature hits, but is there a song that maybe you wish was a bigger hit than it was?
Yeah, I've got a song that never was released as a single that I've always thought was a great single, so I'm hoping one of these young girls that's out there in country would want to cut it. It's Sweet Meant to Be. I think it's just a really cool radio song that's actually for real, I fell in love. I loved that because it was crafty and fun, and that's what I wanted to be, was the fun, rocking country chick. And the most energetic performer out there. Every little thing was a big hit, and it's taken me across the world, basically, because I had a lot of success with it in Europe, too. So I'm still able to go over there and play like I'm a big star.
Yeah.
Which is funny. And but it's great, and I totally appreciate it. But yeah, that I think that that's, kind of cool, but I also have written some that I know were good songs that no one's probably heard unless they bought the albums. And the one that has been the most consistently recorded by other people and by myself was Easy From Now On, which I wrote when I was quite young. And I wrote it with Susanna Clark, and that's the beginning of me getting picked up by Emmy Lou's management and taken to Warner Brothers and getting signed and starting my recording career, because her and Rodney Crowell said, you should check out this Carlene Carter. She's really good, and she's got credentials.
Yeah. So now you have some granddaughters who got the music bug a little bit. What's the legacy of the Carter Cash music family singing career?
Well, I think it's the legacy of it is basically I want to pass it down to them and have them carry it on in their own way and make their own music, but have it still always have that carried in their backpack with them. There's a lot of miles and a lot of experiences and a lot of wisdom in that backpack that have been passed down to me through my grandmother and through my mom and my aunts, and then through my own experience. I want to pass that down to my daughter, who my daughter already knows a lot of it, that I want her to pass it down to her daughter, because it cuts some corners to know how to carry yourself in this business. And when I say carry yourself, it's like to hold your head up and be brave and don't be afraid or try to have anyone mold you into something you're not. And that was one thing my grandma was just like, this is what I do, and I hope you like it, and I'm going to try my best to do a good job here. But that was, it's the humble artist part of it too that's important, is that you never get the big head, but you always hold your head up with grace and pride, not like being egotistical or anything. It's just like, this is my music and this is where I come from, and I'd like you to hear some of it.
Well, I appreciate your time, Carlene. Is there anything you want to say about your show in Idaho Falls in March?
I want all y'all to come on out of your houses and come out and have a fun night with us, because me and Chris and Al, we rock like hell. And we all play multiple instruments, and it's fun, and I'll make you laugh, and hopefully I might make you cry.
That's great. Well, I'm looking forward to checking it out. It's at the Colonial Theater, March 6th at 7:30. Maybe we'll see you around somewhere in Idaho. We'll cross paths somehow.
I hope so. Well, come and say hi to me at the show, okay?
I sure will.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, Carlene.
Okay.